All right. What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? And welcome back to the Wrestling Otaku channel, your personification of excellence on YouTube, YWC. And I am here tonight. It is now officially February the 15th of 2024. So what is going on, folks? Hope y'all had a good Valentine's Day and all that. I personally am not a big proponent of that, as I mentioned in the video earlier, but hope y'all had a good one. I for the most part stayed in, stuff like that. And actually, if we're being technical, this is the first live stream here on the new channel, since of course I have live stream enabled now on this channel, which obviously, I was going to eventually. But yeah, so I want to welcome you all in. It's a little late here, like it's 12:24 a.m., a little past midnight here, Eastern time where I am. So, with this first live stream, I wanted to go ahead and get my thoughts on a news story in wrestling that came out last week. And I know I'm a little behind in terms of talking about this, but with everything that happened within the last week, of course, I was preoccupied with other things, particularly, the status of my channels and stuff like that. But I do want to get my thoughts on the story in a video. So I figure I'd go ahead and do it now while I'm thinking about it. And what better way to do it than live in front of everybody? Well, not too many people are going to be here this late, and of course on this new channel. But yeah, so as you guys are probably already well aware of by now, former TNA president Scott D'Amore has officially been fired from TNA Wrestling. And not only was he, president, he had a whole bunch of other titles throughout his history, throughout his tenure in the promotion. He was in the promotion as far back as like 2003, I believe, during the original inception of TNA, like, during the Asylum days, and then later when they moved to Fox Sports 1, and then when they first aired on Spike TV, of course, during that period, and then he was around for when TNA was at its heights throughout the midway part of the 2000s, 2006, 2007, 2008, and he was a very important part throughout it. He was both, I'm sure he had many responsibilities backstage as a producer, as somebody who was in talent relations, I believe, and he was also an on-screen character. He was a manager for a faction called Team Canada, as some of you guys may know from those of you who watched the early days of TNA. You had guys like Petey Williams, Robert, Bobby Roode, Eric Young, of course, very well-known names in TNA. In the history, in the annals of TNA. They were part of course, Team Canada, and it was led at the time by Scott D'Amore, who was essentially their manager. But Scott D'Amore was very, very important part of TNA's history. And there was a period where he had left, I believe, around 2015, 2016, I want to say. And then in 2017, I think, or 2017, 2018, he returned to the company, and he continued, his role as a more of a backstage kind of person. He's backstage personnel. And then I believe in 2002, 2003, he was elected as president of the company, and he basically started, taking on an on-screen role as the authority figure, pretty much in TNA. And as you guys know, this year, in the beginning of this year, there was a rebrand, of course, of TNA, starting with the Hard to Kill pay-per-view back on January 13th. They rebranded, after years of being just known as Impact Wrestling. They went back to their history. They went back to the roots and rebranded once more as TNA Wrestling. And Scott D'Amore was a big part of that. Scott D'Amore was a big reason why, the company had this, I guess you could say, in a way, a resurgence. He was very vocal about what he wanted from the company, what he wanted the company to be. And for him to be fired in this wet manner, now that, TNA is having this resurgence and, people are starting to pay attention to him again and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, this firing comes from literally out of nowhere. Like, it was a big surprise to a lot of people. And I think a lot of us were wondering what the deal was. And so there have been several reports in regards to the firing. And I'm going to read to you guys one such report, courtesy of Wrestling Inc. This was the initial report for when he was fired. I believe this was from last week. So let me just switch over to the article real quick. Okay, hold on. All right, here we go. Courtesy of Wrestling Inc., the header reads, Scott D'Amore fired as TNA president by Anthem Sports. And this was posted on February 7th, 2024. So, yeah, a little roughly over a week ago. And the article reads, another shakeup has taken place in the world of pro wrestling. TNA Wrestling President Scott D'Amore has been let go, with Anthony Siccione, I believe that's how you Anthony Siccione of TNA's parent company, Anthem Sports and Entertainment Inc., taking over as the new president. The company's press release states that the intent is to further integrate TNA into Anthem's entertainment group, which Siccione is already the president of. According to a report from PW Insider, it is believed that the decision came directly from Anthem's owner, Ben Asper, as echoed by the official statement. Anthem management will be taking on a larger role in the day-to-day operations of TNA, with Siccione leading that charge. D'Amore's termination comes less than a month after the company changed its branding from Impact Wrestling back to TNA, its original moniker. With the relaunch, the company has brokered a great deal of goodwill with fans, making D'Amore's exit all the more surprising. According to an update on the matter from Fightful Select, Anthem management met with TNA talent over Zoom this afternoon. The report also quoted one talent who understood the reasoning behind the change but credited D'Amore with saving the promotion. In contrast with D'Amore, Siccione has no direct experience working in the professional wrestling industry. The Anthem press release touted his history of, quote, executive-level management experience, specifically referring to cable and digital channels. It remains to be seen if the company intends to keep Siccione in charge of TNA long-term or if he will be managing the promotion until Anthem finds a suitable replacement. Similarly unknown is how the company intends to handle the creative process moving forward. In addition to his management duties, D'Amore was previously a key part of the team in charge of booking TNA's TV shows and pay-per-views. And that's it for the initial article. So yeah, Scott D'Amore was just like, again, and this report kind of echoed that sentiment. Seemingly, this was out of left field. Like, the fans had no clue that, had no idea why this happened. The talent, I don't know if there was stuff that happened behind the scenes. I guess we'll have to find out. Maybe down the line. I did see that there were some other reports, speaking on, of course, the fallout from Scott D'Amore's, release from TNA or firing from TNA as the president. And this Anthony Siccione guy is going to take over as president, so I'm not sure what role that's going to play with Impact, or TNA going forward. I'm not sure what their creative process is going to be or what, but this is a big deal. This is a big blow to them. From an internal standpoint, and from just a personnel, and from just an overall standpoint. Again, he was going into this year with this rebrand. He was such a big part. He was such an integral part of their appearance, their growth, or their rebrand, I should say. And he was a big part of that. He was a big part of the reason why, TNA had this, in essence, a resurgence, and going into the rebrand, going into this year. And it's from an internal standpoint, I'm not really sure what the reason is. I guess we won't know until maybe down the line. I'm not sure if there was something that happened behind the scenes. I've heard a couple people speak on there was maybe rumblings of, there being dissension between Scott D'Amore and the people who run Anthem Sports in regards to what direction they want the company to go in. There was some talk of finances. There was some talk about Scott D'Amore wanting a bigger budget for TNA, and Anthem wouldn't approve it. And of course, there, as it was mentioned in the report, this was a part of a strategy to integrate TNA into Anthem Entertainment's or integrate them into Anthem Entertainment's day by day operations or plans or whatever the case may be. And so I'm not sure how this is going to affect the company long term. I'm not sure how it's going to be run. I'm not sure who's going to run from the wrestling side. I'm not sure who's going to run booking, who's going to be booking the shows or the pay-per-views or what. This was, like I said, a big deal internally, and it was also a big deal from a public standpoint, from a publicity standpoint. Scott D'Amore was a big loss. He was such a big part of TNA for a long time, and for him to be released in this manner, it just raises questions. Why? The most important one being, why did they release him? Was it a matter of something internally? Was there some kind of argument or some kind of disagreement backstage that was so egregious to the point where they had to release him, or they thought they had to release him? Was money the issue? Like, was there something else going on that we don't know about? I don't know. There's just a lot of questions I guess we won't know the answer to. And the other question is, where do they go from here? Like I said, Anthony Siccione, the guy who's going to be president, who's taken over for president, doesn't have any, as it said here in the article I just read, he doesn't have any wrestling experience or experience in pro wrestling. So how exactly is he going to contribute or factor into the plans for TNA going forward? I really don't know. I really don't know. I don't know if the talent know. I don't know if anybody in personnel in TNA who's still there. I don't know if any of them know, but yeah, I don't know where TNA goes from here. And will this kill the momentum of TNA going forward? I mean, it could very well may. I mean, if there is a regression, or if people start to notice a regression or a change, and not for the better when it comes to TNA's booking, when it comes to the shows that they've been doing, and just like the overall feel of the presentation, then I think it will be a derailing factor. Like, I think it will be a factor. I think it will play a factor as to whether or not TNA becomes a mainstay player in the wrestling realm. I don't think at this point, I don't want to say impossible. I think it's a very, very, very long shot for them to get back to where they were 10 years ago. Like, they're not going to be, they're not going to be seen as the same as they were back in the 2010s or, the 2000s. I think those days are done and gone. But I think, like, with this rebrand, there was a very real chance that they could, at the very least, have enough of a following or enough of a push to be at least the number 3 company or number 3 promotion in North America, at least, behind, of course, AEW and WWE. But now it's kind of up in the air. And it's just, kind of a shame. Scott D'Amore was obviously, he was dedicated to his job. He was passionate about pro wrestling. I mean, you saw it with the things that he would do, the storylines he would be involved with, and especially in the last year or so with his on-screen character and the things that he would contribute to the promotion. It's just he obviously was such an important part of it, and I'm sure he was had a huge personal emotional attachment to it. And so obviously this is a big loss for him, and it's a big loss for the company. And we'll see where they go from here, but I just don't know. Now, as to what Scott D'Amore does from here, now that he's no longer with TNA, does he go elsewhere? I mean, there are options out there if, somebody wants to pick him up as a producer, maybe a producer role, maybe a creative role, maybe as an on-screen character like a manager or something like that. I don't know if they would go that route, but could WWE or an AEW possibly make an offer to him and have him play that, and like a behind the scenes role, kind of like what he was with TNA for a long time. It remains to be seen. I mean, I guess it depends on what he wants to do, or there might be a chance he goes back to TNA. You never know. As not necessarily as the same role he had before, but I don't know. Maybe, or is it like too little, too late? Is this latest firing just kind of a sign that Scott D'Amore and Anthem Sports are such at odds that him coming back to the company is probably out of the question. Especially, there was another report that I heard where Scott D'Amore allegedly excuse me, Scott D'Amore allegedly went to Anthem Sports, went to the owners and the people in charge of Anthem Sports, and basically said that he wanted to purchase TNA Wrestling outright and run the company his way. And he had a banking institute. He was backed by like a banking institution. I guess he had like a business loan or something like that, or whatever the case may be. And he basically went to them with this offer, and it was a significant offer worthy of consideration, according to quote unquote. And they ultimately turned him down. So did that factor into his firing? Apparently, from the word that I got from various people that I've listened to, he was going to be fired. He was going to be released regardless, and he knew ahead of time. So that's why he made that offer. So I don't know, man. Just a lot of variables, just a lot of questions. And I'm not I'm not in TNA. I'm not, behind the scenes like that. I'm not a journalist, so I don't really have all the answers. All I can do is speculate based on the information that I've seen and that I've been given. But all I'll say is this: Scott D'Amore is a big loss for TNA. And I do think it's going to adversely affect them in the long run, especially with this, the rebrand and stuff like that, because he was a very important part of their, not only of them just from an internal standpoint and how they ran the shows and stuff like that, but in terms of his on-screen presence, in terms of, from a public standpoint, publicity standpoint, from a public viewpoint, like he was almost, you could say almost he was the face of TNA in a way. But yeah, I do think, I don't think it's necessarily going to kill the company that he's not there, but I'm just saying it's going to adversely affect them in a way that they might not be able to recover from. I mean, you never know. But anyway, so that's really all I wanted to say. Like I said, the other reports that mentioned, since that, the report that I read first came out, the other reports are basically, other talents speaking on his, firing and his departure, stuff like that. Basically, speculation as to where he goes from there, blah, blah, blah. It didn't really, elaborate on why, the reasons why, or whatever. So I don't feel the need to read those. But I just want to give my thoughts. I do think it's a big loss for TNA. It's a shame, obviously it would be a loss. It's a loss for Scott D'Amore personally. So I wish him well, and, we'll see what the future holds. And as for TNA, we'll see what the future holds for them. Let's just hope they can maintain this momentum, even with Scott D'Amore not there anymore. But yeah, well, again, only time will tell. So we'll have to see, man. We'll have to see. And I've had the chance to watch TNA, since they rebranded. The latest episodes of Impact have been pretty solid. They got their old theme back, and the feel of the shows is, this feels like a little more energy in the stadium or in the arenas that they do their shows in and stuff like that. But for the most part, it's very similar to how they've been running, the shows for the last several years, but very wrestling based or very wrestling oriented. And so, I enjoy them. I enjoy the last couple shows I've seen. I've enjoyed them. So, but anyway, that's pretty much all I got to say for that. That's really all that I had to talk about there. So those are my thoughts on the release of former TNA president Scott D'Amore, him no longer being with the company. And yeah, so that's all I got to say about that. And if there's any more news in regards to this, in terms of follow-up or anything like that, I'll let you guys know in a future video, follow-up video, whatever have you. But that's pretty much all I got to say for that. So that's my take on the matter. And that's pretty much going to conclude this live stream. So, and this wasn't going to be very long. I just wanted to get my take on that. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys. For anybody who was watching, we didn't have many people watching live, but after this is uploaded and archived to the channel, if you guys, get the chance to watch this video, thank you for tuning in up to this point, and be sure to stay tuned to the channel for more content, and hopefully do a lot more live streams in the future. I want to get back to doing some podcasts. I want to get back to doing my World of Wrestling podcast, some other live streams and stuff like that, and we're gonna have some fun on here with the content. But that's all I got to say for that. So thanks for watching. Be sure to leave a like, leave a comment on this video. Hope you guys enjoyed, like I said. Give me your thoughts on this topic, on the story. If you have any thoughts, if you guys are following TNA, if you have been made aware of the Scott D'Amore story that came out last week, give me your thoughts in the comments after this video uploads. And be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Appreciate all the support I can get. We're now at 70 subs. We're quickly approaching 100, so yeah. So once we get to 100, then hopefully it's smooth sailing from there. And but yeah, going forward. But anyway, that's all I got to say for that. So I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up here as we're approaching 20 minutes of this video. So thank you all for watching once again, and be sure, as always, like I said before, like the video, leave a comment, subscribe, and be sure to check out my other channels as well. Tell your friends, tell everybody you know to subscribe to the Wrestling Otaku channel. And that's pretty much going to do it, man. So thanks for watching again. See you guys with the next video. Till then, have a good night. This has been the Wrestling Otaku, and I'll see you all later. I'm out. Peace.